This is not about output, Aizawa continued. I already know you're powerful. Power is easy. He stepped forward. Combat is not. Aizawa activated his quirk. The air shifted. Izuku felt it instantly. His quirk went quiet, gold vanishing like a snuffed flame. His breath caught, but his feet stayed planted. Good, Aizawa noted. No panic. You are quirkless, Aizawa said flatly. Right now, you are what you would be in an ambush under suppression or against someone better prepared than you. He lifted his goggles slightly, eyes sharp. Survive for 5 minutes. Izuku swallowed. Am I allowed to fight back? Yes. Aizawa moved. Aizawa had trained with professionals. Police, underground heroes, quirkless operatives who survived on timing and nerve alone. He knew what competence asterisk looked like when quirks were stripped away. Midoriya, Izuku, moved like he'd been doing this his entire life. Not flashy, not desperate. Every motion was economical angles instead of speed, anticipation instead of reaction. When Aizawa pressed him, the kid didn't retreat blindly. He redirected. When Aizawa cut off escape routes, Midoriya didn't panic. He created asterisk space with footwork sharp enough to belong in a pro ring. Too sharp. Aizawa fainted high, then went low, capture scarf snapping out like a viper. Midoriya didn't dodge backward. He stepped asterisk in asterisk. He used Aizawa's momentum, caught the edge of the scarf, twisted his wrist just enough to disrupt the tension, and slipped past Aizawa's shoulder in a movement that should not have been instinctive for a 15-year-old civilian. Aizawa let the motion carry through, rolling away before the follow-up strike could land. That was drilled, he thought. Not improvised, not copied from hero footage. That counter had been practiced, corrected, repeated until it lived in muscle memory. 5 minutes stretched thin. Aizawa escalated. He increased pressure, forcing Midoriya into tighter spaces, attacking from blind angles, testing reflex under stress. Midoriya adapted every time, not perfectly, but intelligently. He learned asterisk mid-fight, adjusting patterns, abandoning failed tactics without hesitation. That kind of cognition under suppression. It wasn't normal. The timer chimed again. Aizawa stopped. He released his quirk, goggles lifting as gold flared faintly back under Midoriya's skin, but Midoriya didn't use it. He stayed where he was, breathing hard, eyes alert, waiting for confirmation that it was actually over. Aizawa stared at him. Where did you learn to fight like that? He asked. Midoriya hesitated. That alone was answer enough. Kaken, he admitted quietly. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. Bakugo Katsuki. Yes, sir. Silence fell heavy between them. Aizawa turned away, rubbing at his tired eyes beneath the goggles. He replayed the file in his head. Asterisk same middle school. Minimal interaction noted. No joint extracurriculars. Another lie. How long? Aizawa asked, voice carefully neutral. Have you been training together? Midoriya swallowed. Since before my quirk, we never stopped. Aizawa exhaled slowly. Years of unsupervised combat training between two high-output quirks. One explosive, one kinetic, and not a single report had mentioned it, not concern, not praise, not even fear. They erased it. Because admitting Midoriya wasn't a problem meant admitting they'd created one. Aizawa looked back at the boy. Quirkless, Midoriya had been fast enough to evade him, strong enough to redirect a grown man's momentum, smart enough to adapt under pressure without freezing. With his quirk, the entrance exam had shown power. The medical files had shown restraint. This fight showed intent. You don't need your quirk to make villains afraid, Aizawa said quietly. Midoriya flinched, not in fear but surprise. Aizawa continued, voice low. Your quirk gives you an edge, options, reach. His eyes sharpened. But you were already dangerous before it. Midoriya didn't respond. He just nodded, like this was something he'd always known but never been allowed to say out loud. Aizawa turned toward the exit. Bakugo trained you to survive, he said. Not to show off, not to dominate. Midoriya's voice was barely audible. He said heroes who rely only on quirks die first. Aizawa paused. That sounded exactly like something an angry, perceptive kid would conclude after watching the world long enough. Get some rest, Aizawa said finally. We're done for today. As he walked away, scarf trailing behind him, Aizawa felt something settle in his chest, not relief. Resolve. Midoriya Izuku wasn't a powerhouse. He was a strategist, a survivor, a weapon sharpened by neglect and lies, honed in secret where adults hadn't bothered to look. And Aizawa Shouta would make damn sure that never happened again. 3 weeks later, UA's front gate loomed exactly the same as it always had. Tall, imposing, a promise and a threat welded together in steel. Izuku stood just outside it, fingers curled into the fabric of his UA uniform hard enough to wrinkle it. The jacket fit properly. Recovery Girl had made sure of that. But his shoulders were still tight, breath shallow, heart beating like he was about to be called in front of a firing squad instead of a classroom. First day. Again. Only this time, he actually belonged here. You gonna keep strangling your jacket, or are we going in? Bakugo's voice cut through Izuku's thoughts like a familiar blade. Sharp, irritated, comfortable. Izuku flinched anyway. Bakugo Katsuki stood beside him, hands shoved into his pockets, posture loose in the way that only came from absolute confidence. The UA uniform looked like it had been designed asterisk for asterisk him. Sharp lines, clean fit, the faint crackle of restrained energy under his skin. Izuku swallowed. Sorry. Bakugo snorted. You've been apologizing since we got on the train. Izuku forced his hands to relax. What Bakugo didn't know sat heavy in his chest. 3 days after the entrance exam. After the nurse's bay. After he'd healed enough to stand. Aizawa Shouta had tested him. Not written, not graded, not recorded anywhere that could be altered or erased. Izuku had never told Bakugo. He wanted to. God, he'd wanted to. But every time he opened his mouth, he remembered the look Aizawa had given him afterward. Measured, serious, asterisk, protective asterisk. This stays between us, for now. And Izuku had been afraid. Afraid Bakugo would explode. Afraid he'd take it as an insult. Afraid he'd march straight up to Aizawa and demand answers Izuku wasn't sure he was allowed to give. So he'd stayed quiet. Bakugo glanced sideways at him, red eyes narrowing. You're acting weird. Izuku stiffened. I am not. That was a question, Bakugo snapped. And yeah, you are. Izuku's mouth opened, closed, his heart hammered. He never noticed Bakugo tense too. Because Bakugo was keeping a secret of his own. Aizawa Shouta had called him in that same day. No warning, no audience, no explosions allowed. Quirk erasure, close combat, pressure. Bakugo had fought like hell. And Aizawa had smiled, just barely, when Bakugo didn't rely on firepower alone. Bakugo hadn't told Izuku either. They stood there in silence for a moment, 2 boys who had grown up side by side, trained together, bled together, and were now hiding truths from each other for the first time in their lives. It felt wrong. Bakugo clicked his tongue. Oi. Izuku jumped. Why yes? Bakugo scowled. Whatever you're freaking out about, drop it. He looked away, jaw tight. You passed, I passed, that's what matters. Izuku stared at him. Bakugo added, more quietly, and if some teacher pulled shit you didn't like, we deal with it together. Izuku's chest tightened. Kakin, he whispered. Bakugo rolled his shoulders. Don't get mushy. They stepped forward at the same time. The gates of UA opened. Neither of them noticed Aizawa Shouta watching from the upper walkway, scarf fluttering faintly in the morning wind, eyes sharp and unreadable. 2 boys who thought they were carrying secrets alone. 2 boys who had already been tested, stripped bare, and deemed worthy asterisk. Aizawa turned away. Class was about to begin. Class 1A buzzed, with the kind of noise that only came from new beginnings. Chairs scraped against the floor, voices overlapped, and quirks sparked in small, unconscious ways. Tiny bursts of light, faint temperature shifts, nervous energy bleeding through skin. It was chaos, but harmless. The kind of chaos Aizawa expected from first years who still thought school was something you could win. Izuku took his seat near the middle, hands folded carefully on his desk. Okay, he told himself, don't stare, don't analyze, don't start muttering. It was harder than he thought. A girl with gravity-defying hair floated a few centimeters above her chair when she laughed. A boy with an engine-like hum in his calves paced the room like he couldn't turn it off. Izuku's eyes flicked from one quirk manifestation to another, cataloging, theorizing. He forced himself to look down at his notebook. Later, he promised himself. You can be excited later. Bakugo dropped into the seat beside him with a sharp thunk, arms crossed, expression carved from irritation. Anyone watching would assume he was already bored. Izuku knew better. Bakugo's foot tapped once, then stopped, controlled. His shoulders were loose, but his eyes were sharp, tracking the room with the same awareness he used in a fight. He was excited. He just refused to show it. The door slid open. A boy with messy purple hair stepped inside. That was all it took. Izuku's spine went rigid. Bakugo's foot stilled completely. They didn't look at each other. They didn't need to. Their bodies reacted first, muscle memory screaming threat before their minds could catch up. Izuku's breath hitched, the faintest flicker of gold stirring under his skin before he strangled it back down. His fingers curled against the desk, grounding himself. Bakugo's jaw tightened, heat flaring instinctively in his palms before he forced it away. The purple-haired boy grinned lazily, eyes half-lidded as he scanned the room like it was already his. His gaze lingered too long on people, measured them, weighed reactions. Predatory. Izuku didn't know why his stomach twisted. He just knew it wasn't good. The boy took a seat near the back, slouching like he owned the place. Only then did Izuku realize his heart was pounding. Why did that feel like an ambush? Bakugo leaned back in his chair, arms still crossed, posture screaming disinterest, but his eyes never left the purple-haired student. He muttered under his breath, bad vibes. Izuku swallowed. Yeah. A few minutes later, the door opened again. Aizawa Shouta walked in. The room quieted almost instantly, not because he demanded it, but because something about him made noise feel like a bad idea. He took in the class with a single sweep of tired eyes, gaze lingering for half a second longer on two students in the middle row. He saw it. The tension, the readiness. Two kids sitting still in a room full of fidgeting energy, muscles coiled like they were waiting for a signal no one else could hear. Like they can scent danger, Aizawa thought. His mouth twitched. Not a smile. He didn't do those, but something close enough to count. Interesting. He dropped his sleeping bag onto the floor with a thud and clicked on the homeroom console. Good morning, he said flatly. I'm Aizawa Shouta, your homeroom teacher. Groans rippled through the room. Aizawa didn't care. His eyes flicked once more to Midoriya Izuku and Bakugo Katsuki. Perfect he thought. And also, inevitably, problems. Just the way he liked them. Aizawa let the silence stretch, just long enough to make everyone uncomfortable. A few students shifted in their seats. Someone swallowed loudly. The purple-haired boy leaned back, arms folded behind his head, a lazy grin still plastered on his face. Aizawa clicked his tongue. Change of plans, he said. A collective blink went through the room. Put on your UA gym uniforms and meet me at ground beta. He glanced at the clock. You have 10 minutes. What? Someone blurted. On the first day, another protested. Aizawa didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. If you're late, you're out. That did it. Chairs scraped. Panic ignited. The class surged toward the door in a wave of sudden urgency.